Let's talk about that migrant crisis that is bound to continue as Title 42 is going to expire on the 11th tomorrow. And that means you're going to see a lot more people come across the southern border, some claiming asylum. And if they do, then they're going to be possibly moved from the border locations that are jam-packed to places like Chicago. That is a sanctuary city, a welcoming city, a city that says that they are going to allow for these individuals to move in and not face, detainer orders. Illinois, a couple of years ago, passed a measure that essentially says local police cannot initiate arrests purely on a detention order from the federal government for immigration violations. So that's what makes Illinois kind of a so-called welcoming city. But State Representative Marty McLaughlin on the House floor yesterday, he raised concerns about other policies the state of Illinois has, especially in the face of Title 42 coming to an end very soon. And here is Marty McLaughlin on the House floor last night.
Today I rise to acknowledge a serious problem we're all about to face in Illinois, particularly in Cook County. It was just acknowledged by outgoing Mayor Lightfoot. As Title 42 expires in under 48 hours and as millions have crossed our borders, tens of thousands of illegal, undocumented migrants, immigrants are on their way to all of our communities, particularly Cook County, a sanctuary city. These days, the politically correct terminology is irrelevant, but the demand on our resources is more than relevant. We are asked here to how best spend residents' hard-earned tax dollars. As we're about to allocate over $50 billion in a budget over the next 10 days, please, before you blindly send hundreds of millions of dollars to non-citizens on top of the hundreds of millions which have already been allocated by the governor, remember you're doing so at the expense of Illinois residents who have sent their taxes to our state to be served. Many advocates visit all of our offices, and we've all experienced this over the last 3 weeks, seeking funding for worthwhile programs. And some of these I'm going to highlight, which include mentally disabled citizens who are living in understaffed SILA facilities, sexual abuse survivors whose shelters are being threatened to be closed based on underfunding. And I am privileged to serve on the Illinois Kidney Foundation, where many suffer from kidney disease, predominantly in our black and brown communities. Please serve, protect, and honor your pledge to take care of the citizens of Illinois first, particularly our most vulnerable as we go through the budget over the next 10 days. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So that's State Representative Marty McLaughlin from Barrington Hills talking about the priorities, especially with Title 42 getting ready to lift and the expectation that there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands more migrants who cross the border either seeking asylum or illegally being shipped to places like Chicago, for instance. So McLaughlin's comments came out before Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot took to a podium in Chicago to sound off on an emergency declaration she made about the migrant crisis. So here's Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot chiming in on that.
This was done with little advance notice, no coordination, and simply no consideration for our ability to receive these arrivals in a safe, orderly, and dignified way. Last week, I sent a letter to Governor Abbott when we learned that he may be sending more migrants to our city via bus to try to reason and explain to him that, yes, of course, we are a welcoming city, and we will always do what is right by our immigrant and refugee communities. But we've reached a breaking point in our response to this humanitarian crisis, primarily manufactured by him for cynical political purposes. As expected, my letter was written in vain. And today we responded to the arrival of 48 more individuals and families that required emergency support and shelter.
She went on to talk about how the city has received 8,000 migrants and that all of their places they put them are full. They have dozens that are actually sleeping in police stations. She's begging for the federal government to step in and provide some resources. But she says they're going to remain a welcoming city.
I continue to be proud of our city as a welcoming city. It's easy but difficult to do, and Chicago will always rise to the challenges. We have always been a beacon of hope and a welcoming place for immigrants and refugees since our earliest days, and we will always be so. As
So again, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot talking about that. It's obviously going to be an issue that the local officials in Chicago are going to have to deal with. There's concern that it could mean that it's going to spill over into some of the suburb areas of Chicago and elsewhere throughout the state. So obviously it's going to be a big story, and we'll be tracking that as well. It is Springfield's Morning News on WMAY.